Listen in.
My name is Fanon Rucker. I am one of the members of the Cochran Firm legal team that represents Ryan Hinton. Members of his family who just heard some devastating news are standing here to discuss what we heard today. You know, I'll offer first of all that justice comes in many forms. One of the things that we did not see today was justice coming from the criminal justice system. But justice is still going to be obtained, and we're here to ensure that that is the case. What I heard from our prosecutor today was a word that confuses and astounds, but doesn't surprise me. And that is justified. The prosecutor said that she ruled that this was a justified shooting. But what have we not seen? Didn't see it today, haven't seen it since May 1st. A gun in a young man's hand as he was running away from someone who was not even in uniform standing to his side shooting at him. We saw today in a press conference slow down shots to justify what our eyes didn't tell us we saw. How was that justified? What we saw in the press conference today was conversation about a young man who with his friends were somewhere in Kentucky beforehand and what he was wearing at another time. What have we heard about the officer whose words we're taking as credible in this instance? All I heard were letters referring to people's names, including someone who took the life of another person. Justified? That's not our position. And that's certainly not the family's position. What we know is when we talk about our court system, the most important piece when it comes to obtaining justice is the credibility of those involved. Credibility comes when we look at physical evidence like videos and still shots and body-worn camera. Credibility is established when you look at the records of those who were giving statements. What is the record of the primary officer here who pulled the trigger and shot, as the chief said, in the chest when we know it wasn't the chest, it was the side? What is that officer's background? We know it. And we know his jacket with the Citizens Complaint Authority and with internal investigations is not empty. And we ask the question, why is his word the credible word that the prosecutor's office is willing to take in such a serious matter? We don't think it should be. And we express to you today that justice will be obtained. Two of the things that we want to press today about what the prosecutor did. First of all, we obviously disagree with the idea that this was justified. Second of all, there are neighboring jurisdictions who take every serious police case, shooting, homicide, to the grand jury to let citizens look at the evidence and make a decision whether the charges are appropriate. For the prosecutor's office to unilaterally decide based on the reading of the facts and based on the reading of the law that they shouldn't even present this should have been presented to the grand jury. In 2020, after George Floyd was murdered, Governor DeWine proposed several amendments to our state law policies. One of those state law policies that with serious shootings or homicides involving police officers, that an independent body be the investigating, not the entity that was at the source of the shooting itself. We believe that those ought to be the policies that our office in this county ascribes to. Transparency, trust, a system that people believe in. That's what helps to get there. But unilaterally deciding that this is justified and that this shouldn't even go to the grand jury, that doesn't feel like justice. And it certainly doesn't feel to this family like this was justified. We will, in the coming weeks, be presenting our argument to the courts. And even though a group of citizens didn't have the opportunity in that building to decide whether criminal charges should be filed, we believe that a group of citizens should be the ones to make the determination of whether or not, in the eyes of the civil courts, that the tragic death of young Ryan Hinton was not justified. And we intend to advocate for that position as loudly, as strongly, and as intentionally as we can. I believe there's one voice that would like to be heard, and since it's raining, I'll ask him to come on up quickly. You do want to? This is the voice that you've heard before. This is Ryan Hinton's brother, cousin. That's what I said. It's his cousin. He's been at the other press conferences, and he does have a brief word that he'd like to offer.
Yeah, I just, like I said, like he said, I'm his cousin. I'm Marlon. Ryan, my little cousin. I just want to say, Ryan, we miss you. We love you down here. We all miss you and love you, man. Like, more than you know, bro. But I just want to say that prosecutor, whatever she said or whatever she said, I just felt like was a complete joke. I mean, we all seen Ryan running, man. How can you be threatened by somebody running? I don't understand it. But yeah, I ain't gonna really say too much. I just wanted to tell my cousin I miss him, man. That's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Rucker, you implied that you know the officer's name, and talk more about how do you know that his jacket has some marks?
We've been investigating this case since May the 1st. We have access to a lot of information that has not been made public. In fact, all I heard today was letters referring to police officers' names. We know the names, and we know their histories, and we know that their credibility should not be accepted simply because they made statements, this one in particular, about what happened. And we intend to put that before a group of citizens who can help to make that determination, because credibility is extremely important.
You reference the courts. Are you applying? Will there be a civil suit, or how do you approach
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely.
No, there was a period during this press conference where Pilic went over the criminal activity leading up to this event. What do you make of that description? A rash of thefts in northern Kentucky. What has happened?
Yeah. What I make of that is that that's information. What we were talking about today is whether the officer was justified in the moment that he pulled the trigger and pulling the trigger. So the question is not what was going on in the last century, last week, an hour before, the day before, but what was going on at the time. He had no idea about any of that stuff. So why was it relevant to castigate and to denigrate this young man in this press conference today? Because it had nothing to do with the officer's decision.
And on the note of justification, there's a difference between, of course, criminal liability and civil liability. Tell me why you think that somebody could be civilly liable in this case. O.J.
Simpson. That's the example I use all the time. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty in a criminal trial for the killing of his wife and her boyfriend, but he was found civilly liable for the same exact acts in the court of law. Because the standard in criminal law, and I appreciate this because I was a prosecutor and a judge, the criminal standard is like this. It's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the highest standard that we have in our criminal justice system. In civil court, the standard is like this. It's 51% to 49%. It's more likely than not. And in the court system across the street, it's not even a unanimous verdict that's required to find that a person is liable under those circumstances. So I give people the example of O.J. Simpson. He was found not guilty, but he was found liable for the same exact acts.
When will you be filing?
Soon.
Did you mention that you believe the officer who fired the shots was not in uniform?
That's correct. These were, and the chief admitted it in a prior conversation, that he was not in uniform, that he was actually in non-uniform. He was an undercover officer with, as my understanding, with the particular unit that has its task of being a bit more aggressive in their apprehension of individuals.
What do you believe a judge or jury will see in a civil case that will cause them to rule in your favor?
I think they'll see the law. I think they'll also see the standard that's required, and that's more likely than not that this was wrongful act. And we think that the outcome will be what justice requires. That's what we believe.
Can you spell Marlon's name for us, please?
Marlon?
M-A-R-L-Y-N.
Thank you.
Same last name?
Howard.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Rucker, real quickly, you may have said this, and I'm sorry that I didn't quite catch it. Would is it correct to say you would have preferred she had taken this case to the grand jury, and can you discuss whether that's true or not? Or I'm sorry, I don't mean to put words in.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Why?
Well, whenever we have serious incidences involving the police and the community, going to assume that wasn't for us.
The grand jury question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the grand jury. So again, there are neighboring counties that's their policy, that anytime there is a critical incident involving law enforcement and citizens, it's taken to the grand jury. Let a group of citizens, voting citizens who are registered to vote, receive the information, take a look at the evidence, understand what the law is, and let them make the decision whether or not charges are appropriate with the appropriate instruction. It's more transparent. It's cleaner. It helps to build trust, and I think it's a great policy. And she indicated that she considered that, but she just thinks that she moves differently. I won't be critical of our prosecutor in this role that she's in, as we know that she was recently elected to this role. But the finer actions of neighboring jurisdictions should be strongly considered and should be taken, especially when they help promote transparency and trust in the system that people don't always trust or believe is transparent.
You talk about her recently being elected to this position. Do you feel this move not to bring it to a grand jury was a political one?
I won't dig into the mind of our prosecutor. As someone I've known her since law school, I think that she has good intentions and good purpose in what she does as our prosecutor. So I won't suggest that any decision that's been made in any of these cases was about politics. What I will suggest is that best practices, and as you all know, I was in the running for that position, and so I looked at a bunch of different policies that our office would run much more smoothly, and I think that that's one that would help to build transparency and trust in the system if all of those types of cases went to the grand jury before a group of citizens. A jury is a group of citizens, so let's take it to the grand jury and let the citizens decide. At least then we won't be complaining about the fact that a single person made the decision that this was justified.
Can you tell us today the specific marks you believe there are against this officer?
I cannot. I mean, I know him, but I'm not going to do that here. I'll leave that for the lawsuit.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks.